I really
Yeah.
like to get the nutrient testing too, because then it shows us, because then we have both pieces. So we know how the gut is functioning, so we can
Mm-hmm.
fix that. And is digestion and absorption working? So we can like
Mm-hmm.
resolve that. And then where do we need to focus from the nutrient perspective, where we can focus on the right, like the specific foods that have those
Yes.
nutrients, as well as supplementation to
Yeah.
like get over the hump from that greater metabolic need that we were
Yeah.
talking about. Because food alone isn't going to solve the problem.
No,
And
that one,
there's an
yeah.
advanced one that I like to do on kids because it does give us even deeper information on nutrient imbalances.
Mm-hmm. Welcome everyone to the Skin Deep podcast. I'm your host, Makisha Banks, and this is your go-to source for everything that has to do with skin, especially eczema, dermatitis, and other skin conditions. Today, I'm so happy I have another guest with me. Her name is Jennifer Brand, and I'm really excited about this topic because I know you've been asking about children and what's going on with my kids. It's different than adults, so I'm so excited to have you on here, Jennifer. Please introduce yourself a little bit more.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. So, my name is Jennifer Brand. I am a clinical nutritionist. My focus in my practice is 100% on children with chronic skin rashes. I would say it is heavily focused on eczema because one of the biggest problems in little kids nowadays, kids struggling with chronic skin rashes, it's eczema. Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, that's what kind of gets me is that when I was growing up, it was a few of us, you know? Now it's just becoming more and more people. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you is like, what got you into the industry? Like, what brought you? What was your pain point that brought you in, or was it a passion?
That's a really good question. I think it was both. So,
Okay.
yeah, I've always been sort of like a science nerd, and from a very young age, I just used to think I want to be a scientist. I
Yes.
didn't know what that meant, but I was just really into anything health and biology. And then my father struggles with psoriasis, which turned into
Mm,
psoriatic arthritis, and
yeah.
so he was diagnosed with psoriasis when he was 6 years old. And so my earliest memories of my father are him
Mm-hmm.
walking around the house with saran wrap wrapped around like his elbows and knees to hold the steroids in
Yep.
to and it was interesting because I was talking to him last night, and I was talking to him last night about this, and it came up, and I said something about that, and we kind of laughed. I'm like, because what? Because mom didn't want the creams all over the sheets, and right?
Yeah.
'Cause my mom's kind of a neat freak, and he's like,
Yeah.
no, no, he's like, it maximized the absorption, and I'm just like, oh my
Oh,
God.
no.
Oh my God. But like you're saying, right? So like way back in the day, we know a lot more today than we did then. But anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
so just seeing my dad and not really knowing him any other way than having the skin conditions, which then turned into psoriatic arthritis, and he's in his 70s now, and he's having a lot of health issues and a lot of pain related to all of this. So
Mm-hmm.
so that was part of what got me into, wanting to work with children, because if I had known, if it was a
Yeah.
different time and I was,
Yeah.
my dad was 6 years old now, like I could help him and he wouldn't be struggling with all of these other issues. So I think that was a big piece of it too. Yeah, from the personal aspect.
It's funny how everyone I've been talking to, they all have had the same thing or instruction of saran wrap yourself. Put this on and saran wrap yourself. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like we were getting baked at these young ages and so forth. And it just kills me because it's just like, yeah, I wish there was different advice, instructions, care, knowledge about what we could have done differently. And it just seems sad that everyone has had this saran wrap kind of, advice. And it's like, did it really help? Did it
Right.
really? Or was it just some theatrical thing that made everyone feel like it did help?
I mean, I think it's one of those things like with the steroid, that could be a whole nother conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if, and I guess for my father, it did manage the symptoms, so he
Hmm.
relied on them. And then
Yeah.
when he developed psoriatic arthritis, he's on all kinds of other medications for that. So the
Yeah.
psoriasis is gone because he's
Yeah.
on immunosuppressive drugs for the other stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I think it's a really good opportunity today to be
Hmm.
having this conversation,
Yes.
because there is so much more we know. And from the natural perspective, like I know you focus on this too, like,
Hmm.
healing from the inside out and using safer things topically
Yes.
that can prevent other problems from developing later. And I'm sure, a lot of people out there are probably concerned about topical steroid withdrawal. I see kids with
Yes.
that often, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking, and it doesn't have to be that way. At the same time, though, I always do say so, and I don't, and I want to say this here because I want to be clear. Like the
Okay.
way I look at steroids, right? And we won't
Hmm.
get into this. Like I'm not a doctor; I don't prescribe them or anything like that. But I feel like they can be helpful to get over the hump, right? We just
Hmm.
don't want to rely on them. So like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? So it's like if you need them, that's what they're there for. But we have such a great opportunity to, like, you work so much with the topical stuff, like, and what you can do to safely support the skin barrier from the outside. And I talk to my clients about that as well. And
Hmm.
also healing from the inside out to resolve the problem instead of just
Yes.
manage the symptoms. And I think that's what's really key.
I completely agree. Like the main thing that I realized when I was going through this and still going through it to this day is that there's a lot that we can do when they're younger because I have siblings and I have, cousins and so forth that all are having these certain symptoms that are, deriving from a lot of things that are internal. But then we also have this whole industry that's the beauty industry and I've been in it for so long where they're not really remembering that we need to still protect the barrier. It's all about stripping, getting rid of it, stimulating, making it better and shinier. But I'm like, you're killing yourself because you
Yeah.
don't realizing it's still transdermal. It's still going to go through and it's still going to have an issue down there too. So that I completely agree that it has to be a balance of the two, where it's the external and the internal. A lot of people are just focusing on the external, and I'm the one person that's going to say, even though I own a skincare company, I am not going to tell you this is going to cure it, it's going to get rid of it, it's gone. It's about the internal part and your mental state that you have to look at all three of those things to really fix the skin issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you do what you do and have this perspective. Well, because it is so helpful and the word just has to get out. So I'm so glad that we're
Mm-hmm.
doing this too. Because again, it's like, and it really does come from both perspectives too, because
Yes.
we do have to manage the skin barrier, especially with eczema
Yes.
from the outside to prevent, because the skin, it's damaged, the barrier is
Yes.
leaky, which especially with children, it leaves them more open to allergen exposure, to
Yes.
toxic exposures, because stuff can get in through the bloodstream. And like you were mentioning too, right? Like all of these things, like the industry strips and harsh and clean it up
Yes.
and whatever. Well,
Yeah.
the skin is our largest organ. It's
Mm-hmm.
sensitive, it's delicate, and we're just
Yes.
stripping and scrubbing and whatnot,
Yes.
and we need to appropriately take care of it and kind of coddle it a little bit, right? Like be a little
Yes.
gentle and give it some love.
It's funny how our pets, we like so gentle with it. We're like, okay, what kind of soap is this? But our kids were like, ah, just throw it on there. Just, just strip it down. And that's where I get so frustrated because when I look at children, we have a lot of, kids that use our products as their parents buy it and everything. And a lot of them, they're like, so what do I do? And I'm like, you need to make it thick. You need to get that butter. You need to put a good layer on it to make sure that the skin is protected. And to
Yes.
them, it's like, really? I didn't know I had to lotion my kids, and I was like, huh? Like I get so it boils me inside. But when we don't really take those extra precautions, I feel like we take those precautions when they're newborns, but then
Mhm.
after a certain point in time, I feel like we kind of fall off the bagwagon when they become like a toddler. We stop lotioning them, we stop caring for those daily routines of making sure their skin is nice and lathered after their bath time. So I just feel like there's a gap. There's like this gap when it's like a toddler to like pre-teen, and then they start taking care of their skin again. So how do you feel about that?
I think that's a really interesting point, and I do see that, because, and I think part of it too, and I know it's really hard as a parent, right? So it's easier to do whatever you want to your kid before they have an opinion. But I do, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot of parents that I work with, and it's like the kids, once they become a toddler, once they learn how to say no, sometimes
Hmm.
they refuse the creams. They don't want to be lathered up. They don't want
Yeah.
this stuff on their skin. And And then of course, like as we get older and become teenagers, I remember like as soon as I had acne as a teen, and so when that happened, I started using the Retin-A and all of these creams, right?
Yes.
So you get, when you're old enough to become conscious of it, then you're going to kind of do more. So it's that, you're
Yeah.
right, that between age. And what I find interesting about that, I think it is important to, maintain the routine as much as you can,
Mhm.
keep the skin protected, keep it clean, and keep it moisturized because you got to
Mhm.
protect that skin barrier. Um, but that said, a lot kids are intuitive.
Mhm.
So if they're refusing the creams and the lotions, they can't necessarily explain why. But I always ask parents this, and we have this
Mhm.
conversation to try to suss it out. Are they just, being defiant, or is there
Mhm.
something that's making them uncomfortable and they just don't know how to verbalize it? Is it the
True.
wrong product for them? Or,
Mhm.
because it can be, because sometimes like everybody is so different. So some products that
Yeah.
work great for some people aren't going to work well for somebody else. So is it more irritating to them? Is something else bother? Like what is going on?
Yeah.
Which is
That's
really hard to
true.
tell with a toddler. But so we start to look at
Yeah.
those things. But I do notice that pattern.
That's actually really true. I think I've never took that in that some kids may have a preference for that post touch to it. Like, oh, I don't like it, makes me feel sticky, or it might make me feel a little irritated, or I feel a little dry. Like it's true, they may not be able to articulate what they're feeling when you're putting on that product. I think it's true that the parents do have to kind of do that digging work of, do you not like the way it feels? Or yeah, like you said, are they just being defiant that they just don't want you touching them? So it
Mhm.
is kind of true. We have to kind of do a little bit of that research there to see, what is that feeling that kids are feeling when they're putting on these products. And sometimes they're not really verbalizing. They're just like, no, no, I don't want it on. And you're just like, but I need to.
Right.
Please, please let me save you,
Yes.
So,
Like we just need to fix this, which is a good sign. So,
mhm.
parents that are listening, if your kid seems defiant and doesn't like what you're putting on their skin, try a different product, maybe switch
Yes.
it up and see. Because I do hear from a lot of parents too, oh, I've been trying to put this on and they just won't let me. And then they find something else and it's like, this is the only one they'll let me use.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so sometimes it might be about trying to find a different product. And again,
Hmm.
because everybody's so different. So, start looking at the ingredients, look and see what's
Yes.
in it, start doing a little
Yeah.
research to see, and, try a product that has other things in it. And then,
Hmm.
and of course, fewer ingredients, the better, because then it makes it easier to identify things.
Yes.
But try, just testing out different things can be really helpful because again, everybody is so different.
Yeah, and even the texture of it, because I noticed some parents just like the something quick solution, so they like the lotions, but sometimes the lotions are not thick enough to cover that skin or give
Yeah.
it that sufficient barrier. So it's like just finding that right in between product. Even oils I find are a little bit better because it's
Yep.
quick like a lotion, but it still has that thick kind of consistency. So it's a little bit of that dance that they have to do in terms of figuring out which kind of texture that customer, I mean, that baby or that child likes.
Hmm.
So I have
Yeah.
another question. What is
Yeah.
like the biggest misconception that some of the parents, don't understand when it comes to knowing that their child has a skin rash? Like, they think it's just like, oh, maybe it's too much sugar, but sometimes it could be other things. So do you kind of feel like there's certain misconceptions that they don't understand, or there's intricacies that they're not really looking at?
Yeah, I absolutely do. That's a good question. So, by the time most of my clients find me, they have tried everything. They've done
Mm.
every single cream, lotion, potion. They have
Yeah.
tried, right, all of them. They've done, they've tried all of the diet changes. A lot of them are
Mm.
on limited diets. Things just keep getting worse. A lot of them
Mm.
have tried other functional practitioners. There's just a way to tie things together. So, when we are talking about eczema in particular, it is driven by underlying inflammation. So
Yes.
this underlying inflammation, and that can come from a number of things, right?
Yeah.
So what I help my clients do is identify these internal sources of inflammation
Hmm.
and a big one is what's happening in the gut microbiome. But so
Hmm.
when we're talking about the gut, so let's talk about that one for a minute. And that's
Okay.
something I check out in every single client I work with, and in every single client I work with that has issues on their skin, even if they don't have any gut symptoms at all, like normal poops, like all that kind of stuff, there's
Yeah.
always some sort of gut imbalance in there. So
Mm.
the gut is the organ that has the largest connection to our immune system. Essentially, 70 to 80% of our immune system is located in our gut microbiome.
Ooh, good
So
note.
when something is off in there, that's going to have a huge impact on most of the immune system. And when
Mhm.
that's happening, that's creating a source of internal inflammation. And
Yes.
so that can end up showing up on the skin. So that's a really key piece to know. Some of the other major issues I see in all of the kids I work with are nutrient deficiencies are a
Hmm.
really big one.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that can come from a number of things. Like, number one, kids are growing and developing, right?
Yes.
So their bodies have a really high metabolic need. And when their skin is working to heal, that need is even higher. It's
Higher.
super
Yes.
high. Yeah. So, and I have my clients do this sometimes. I'm like, okay, if you're curious, just search nutrition for wound healing. Because that's
Yes.
essentially like we're trying to heal the skin. And you
Yeah.
will see that the requirements for nutrients, like all of them, are above and beyond the general recommendations. And the
Mm.
general recommendations that you find for nutrient levels are all only to prevent deficiency. They are not for optimal health. They are not for a healing
I
journey.
figured that much because when I would
Yeah.
read, I'm like, that doesn't even sound right because I'm eating more than that. So, and I'm taking more than that. So that's why I'm like, is this just to be safe? When they're putting this information online and so forth or in pamphlets? Because that to me, I'm just like, I don't even think that's enough. Like I'm taking like 6,000 IU's of vitamin D, so I don't
Yeah.
think that makes sense because they're telling me three. So yeah, but
Right.
continue. Yeah.
No, and you're exactly right. That's literally it. Like these recommendations are all to prevent deficiency, and protein's a
Hmm.
huge one. You
Yes.
need a lot of protein to grow, develop, and heal the skin. So protein
Hmm.
is king on a healing journey for your child. So just make sure there's a lot of protein getting in. But
Good to
so
know.
these yeah, so these nutrient deficiencies are another really big issue. So, just in and of itself, like because kids have such a high metabolic need already, and then on a skin healing journey, it's even higher. So
Hmm.
that is an issue. And then also, a lot of these kids are on elimination diets. So that's
Yeah,
taking more out on top of the greater need,
good
right?
nutrition.
And then when there are gut imbalances, we're also not really getting all the nourishment from our food because the gut
Hmm.
can't process it. So
Yeah,
even if the diet's perfect,
yes.
if your child's body can't digest and absorb those nutrients, it's
Hmm.
not going to matter.
Yes.
So, yeah, so these are some of the key things to keep in mind as a parent when your child's struggling with their skin. So, yes, you need to support their skin barrier from the outside, but there are a lot of these things inside that you need to consider as well. And, when we are talking about this inflammation, additionally, like the nutrient deficiencies. So when I've done testing on kids in my practice, there's testing
Hmm.
we can do that for that too. Across the board, one of the biggest categories of deficiencies are antioxidant nutrients, which
Hmm.
combat inflammation.
Yeah. Need
Right?
those. You need those ones
You do.
especially.
Especially. And then when your child's body has this chronic inflammation, it's burning through them even more. And then we have elimination diets and we have picky eating. So
Yes.
antioxidants are in veggies and fruits, right? And so if
Yeah.
the veggies aren't getting in, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know what? It's crazy because I feel like the parents are doing a great job of doing this elimination diet, but they're not realizing they need to transition at some point in time to rebuilding diet, like what you're saying, and supportive diet. Because I think the elimination portion, I think is great because you're trying to take away things that are causing them to have inflammation, but they're not realizing they're taking away some of those things that are essential that you're mentioning here.
Mm-hmm.
Because for some of the people that I know, they're like, okay, I took away this, I took away that. I'm like, how about we just take away the basic stuff, which is processed food and sugar? If you take away those things, I think you're on the right track for the other part.
Right.
Versus like, I'm going to take away the broccoli, I'm going to take away this one, I'm going to take away the spinach, or I'm going to take away that because I think those ones are very high inflammatory. And I'm just like, no, I think you need to take away that box food first. That
Yeah.
one is actually the worst one, even though you think it is a good one, but it's actually
Right.
more worse for them.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, 100%. I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so
No, it really
true.
is. It is. And it's like when we're talking about the food reactions, right?
Yeah.
So the food sensitivities. Now, if you can tell If you're sure that a food is causing a reaction,
Yeah.
okay, it makes sense to take it out. But so many parents I talk to, I don't know. I
Oh
took
my
it
God.
out, but then I'm not sure. And then the rashes came back, so then I took out something else. And it's kind of like you just end up on this downhill path
Yeah.
of a shrinking diet, and things get worse because now their body is lacking this fuel. And of course that's different. So I
Mm.
always have parents. I'm like, if you aren't sure, if you can't tell, if your
Yeah.
child's not having hives, anaphylactic type reactions, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, put it back in.
Yeah.
If there are like actual IgE, like diagnosed allergies, and your doctor
Hmm.
has said to avoid them,
Hmm.
absolutely keep those out. But if
Yeah.
you aren't sure and you can't tell, it's not the food.
Yeah.
That's not,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely goes to the nutrition deficiency that you're talking about. It's like I feel like they're so focused on the food that they're forgetting the other part. But it's
Yeah.
like if you're going to focus on the food, fine. We can only do one step at a time for some people. Get rid
Hmm.
of the things that are the obvious, which is the box food, the processed, the fast food, the sugars, the drinks, the pot, like all of those things that we know are just so bad and high in glycemic factors that are just not good for you. So if at least
Right.
if you take those out and then you start to that next step, which is what you're saying, it's so much better to transition and then identify the things that are not good for them. It's just I think it's like people are underestimating how bad fast food is and the box foods are, that they're not taking it in. They're just like, I took out peanuts, great, but what about those fries?
Right. Exactly. Or that sugared cereal your child eats every morning, right?
I'm so annoyed with cereal. Like, it's not real food, people. It's freaking stuff. It's garbage. And it's like, you thought to take away the peanuts and the almonds, but you thought to keep those guys. Oh, okay. Makes no
Yeah.
sense.
Right. Right. And and it's interesting too. And so much of it, like, and it is like, and the advertisers, the marketers for these really large companies that promote these products, they are
Yeah.
brilliant because they have you as a parent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Picking out the healthy stuff and keeping the junk in.
Yes.
So, so just switch the focus a little bit. Like, and what I
Mm-hmm.
tell my clients too, it's just, if it's grown on this planet, it
Yeah.
doesn't really make as much sense that that is causing a reaction. Like, lots of different
That's so true.
reacts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Versus like something that is in a box, and it's like, okay, you might not have, like, they're so afraid of the allergens, which I understand because
Yeah.
they can't scare.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, to be more scared of that than the sugar
Yeah.
is,
Ooh.
yeah, it's really lopsided. And, we can blame the marketers and the advertisers for that because it's not,
Yeah.
parents listening, this is not your fault.
Yeah.
This is like everything you see out there. This is what you are led to believe is the right
Yes.
thing to do. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why
And
we're having this conversation. So that,
exactly. That's why there's so much children with these concerns, is because of the
yeah.
fact that they've been consuming things for the last 50 years generationally that we're like, I think this is not good for us anymore. The good thing is, I'm not going to lie, it's becoming very much uncovered now. There's a lot of information and access to things that are, and resources that are letting people know that these are no longer good for your children. It was back then when we were, maybe, but now when we realize it, actually, no, a lot of these companies targeted us, did a lot of things that they shouldn't have been doing, and now we're addicted to it, and our kids are addicted to it, and it's tearing everyone's, systems apart. And I'm just happy that now people are becoming a lot more aware of what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's nice nowadays to see the truth coming out about a lot of
Yes.
this stuff. Yeah. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I do want to mention too, though, because I get a lot of parents. Again, most of the parents that find me are
Mhm.
at the other end of this spectrum, and they're so hyper focused on everything eco-friendly and natural. And they're like, a mom I was talking to yesterday, she's like, well, maybe I need to be a little less crunchy. And this one, I'm like, yes, you need to be a little less crunchy. Like, too far, the other end is also not good either. Right?
It's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you'll turn around and you'll be like, this has 5 ingredients. This is too much. Like, you'll go too far. And it's like, we have to be a little bit like balanced. Like we can't be so strict. Like there's some days we have to be a little bit kind and say, okay, fine, I'll give you a little bit of that, but it's not to allow them to have it on a consistent basis. That's the problem. It's becoming a chronic issue versus occasionally saying, you know what, let's have a little bit of ice cream today. You know, we deserved it. Not every day we should be consuming that ice cream and thinking it's not going to add up. Don't worry, we're fine. No, it's going to.
Right. Like, oh, everything in moderation. Well, holidays, birthday parties, it's like, I want to see the kids enjoy these things on special occasions. Everybody should be able to. And this is the thing too. So this just made me think of this. So like, I want parents to have this perspective. So there's always going to be things out here that are going to be triggering for all of us, right?
Yeah.
And our environment generally is not getting any better. It's just going to get worse. And so what we need to focus on is what's happening inside. And we can do as much as possible to clean things up and keep our own environments clean from the outside in. But it breaks my heart when I see parents so hyper focused on all of that stuff, because what we also need to do is, sure, let's do as much as we can, but a lot is out of our control. So just take it down a notch. It's going to be okay. Yep. And what we need to focus on is, okay, why is your child's body so reactive? Not like, yes, what it's reacting to, so we can kind of manage and mitigate that, but why? Because what's happening inside. And this goes beyond like the box and the sugar and all that, right? So throw that out the window. But like if your child's body is still really reactive, this is because a lot of those internal imbalances that we were talking about. And, when I'm looking at those, like on the biochemical data, like on the test results that I look at for my clients, my goal isn't to have like perfect nutrient levels or a perfect looking gut microbiome. It's just like I kind of look at it, I'm like, here's your child's immune function, and here's all these imbalances, and then we kind of just have to go boop. So we need to like bring these down and make your child's immune system more robust. So we find a balance for them, and that balance is different for everybody. And so we need to, because for the rest of their lives, they're going to come into contact with all sorts of things. And we just want them to be able to handle what those things are. So that's where that inside out approach becomes really important as well.
Yeah, and I love what you're talking about, because it is those nutrient markers that you're talking about earlier on in terms of what they should be focusing on to make sure they're not imbalanced. This is what you're doing in your practice in terms of like those tests that you do for them, so that they can see what those markers are like and what's going on with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the primary test that I do, it's a comprehensive digestive stool test. A lot of parents out there probably have heard of this. If your child's struggling with their skin, there is a difference. If it's one that you can order on your own, direct to consumer, it is not helpful. It is missing like critical pieces of information that we need from a clinical perspective to help solve the problem. So make sure, you want to work with a professional. A professional grade comprehensive digestive stool test. It shows us the makeup of the gut microbiome and what's happening in there. Because remember, that is 70 to 80% of the overall immune system. So it shows us what those imbalances are so that we know how to address them. And this is where, at the very sort of like base level, we can start talking about, which I know we won't have time today, it can be a whole nother episode, but like probiotics, right?
Yes.
So this is where, like, if you've heard of probiotics for helping with your child's skin, this is that concept. And yes, probiotics are an important piece of the puzzle, but depending on what's happening in your child's gut, the probiotic that you need is going to be different. And some probiotics can make things worse. Like if your child does have a histamine issue, which not everybody does, but if they're, and I heard you did an episode on histamine.
I did. That's why everything you're talking about, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I did to myself.
It was so fascinating. So some probiotics have histamine producing strains in them. And a lot of histamine they're not bad. Like these are good gut bacteria. But if somebody already has a histamine issue, then that's not going to be the right probiotic, right?
No.
So there are a lot of nuances with the gut and gut health and how that is going to impact the immune system and therefore inflammation and the skin. So that testing is really key. And then a lot of parents out there, maybe they've heard of the urinary organic acids
Yes,
testing.
I've heard of that one.
There's an
Yeah.
advanced one that I like to do on kids because it does give us even deeper information on nutrient imbalances. That
Hmm.
one can only be done though 2 years and up. The
Okay.
comprehensive digestive stool testing can be done at any age, but on a kid like 2 years or older, I really
Yeah.
like to get the nutrient testing too, because then it shows us, because then we have both pieces, so we know how the gut is functioning, so we can
Hmm.
fix that, and is digestion and absorption working, so we can like
Hmm.
resolve that, and then where do we need to focus from the nutrient perspective, where we can focus on the right, like the specific foods that have those
Yes.
nutrients, as well as supplementation to
Yeah.
like get over the hump from that greater metabolic need that we were
Yeah.
talking about. Because food alone isn't going to solve the problem when you
No.
have so much of this chronic stuff happening.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Everything you just said, I was so excited. It was just fireworks going on. I was like, first of all, she's talking about probiotics. I have like this like trauma now from probiotics just because of what I did to myself. But again, it's like exactly what you're saying. You don't necessarily know those key details. You're assuming, you think, but it's like if you get these tests done, there's no guesswork. It's just straight in front of your face and saying, okay, this is now our action plan. And I think
Yep.
that's where parents need to really understand. And even adults, even myself, I'm like, I'm going to get these tests done from you now because it's just like, forget doing the guesswork. It's too much
Yeah.
guessing, guessing, guessing. And it's time to just say, black and white, this is what it is. Let's start working on it because now we know exactly where we are and where we're short and where we're a little bit high on, and we can move forward. And I think what gets me a little sad is that when I'm going to a doctor's office, they're not giving me this information. They're not telling me, hey, this is what we can do. They're giving me a basic blood work, but they're not giving me the real details that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that is why this work can be so helpful and so key. And
Hmm.
and conventional blood work. So again, this can go back to, seeing what those levels are like when you just look them up. It's to
Yeah.
prevent deficiency. So your general lab work can come back and look totally fine, yet
Yeah.
your kid's skin is on fire. Like, so
Yes.
obviously something isn't fine. So what is going wrong inside? And that's where this deeper testing looks. So
Hmm.
conventional, it's do it first,
Yes.
covered by insurance, whatever, go do it,
Yeah.
rule out the overt like deficiencies, and then still having issues that it comes out clean, whatever.
Hmm.
That's where this deeper work comes into play. And, especially because what it does, this from this functional perspective, it's looking for optimal function.
Yes.
Conventional is like deficiencies. Okay, does the body have enough to
Hmm.
just kind of skate by and make do? Okay, we're fine.
Yeah.
No, that's a different, it's like let's optimize this so that the
Yes.
body can truly heal and you're not just continuing to manage the symptoms.
Yeah, like that's exactly it. Because when I went to the doctor, he just said, "You're just a little bit low in iron." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
You're like,
So
that's all.
that's it. Okay,
That's
so I'm
it.
getting iron, and then I'm like, let me look deeper into certain other things that I could get as supplements because I want to. I'm very big on optimizing my body. I've been a person that's always caring about my body from since I was younger, since when I started getting the irritation with the eczema. But it's just like all I've ever been told was your iron is low, but you have eczema. Here's your hydrocortisone. That's it. So it's just like, what the heck? I wish these tests that you're talking about were around much sooner, so then that way people can actually fine tune and go a step deeper, a layer deeper, and a layer deeper to really understand a lot more that they should be knowing. And I feel it's unfortunate, but hey, it's okay. It brought you to where you are and why these are now available to help people and really just open the door to a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to offer this to people
Hmm.
and to have that ability to really, truly help the skin heal from the inside
Yes.
out
Yes.
by giving the body what it needs to function optimally. And
Hmm.
it's also, it breaks my heart, and I see parents that have struggled for years, and they're
Yeah.
creams and diets and creams and diets, and oh, a probiotic and more creams and more diets, and it's
Yeah.
just like, just do the right testing, get it done
Yes.
now, get the right plan. It saves you years and years of
Yeah.
frustration and trial and error and wasted resources if you just do it and get
Thank
to the bottom of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree with that because it would have shortcutted a lot of people's time. Like, I'm in a medical clinic still, and I see people, and I'm like, oh my God, what do you want? Oh, I'm on Dupixent. It's fine. I'm like, no, no. Like, there's so much other things that they can do, but it's like, again, sometimes it's like this fast tracking to a different way of just getting it, treating the symptom. But it,
Yeah.
again, if they're doing these tests, it would really, really just bring them to that next step, So what is a common thing that you see on these tests that kind of are what everyone is kind of, sorry, what do you see on these tests that really show you those imbalances that trigger that eczema or those rashes?
Good question. So with the nutrient imbalances, it's those antioxidant nutrients. So I
Mm-hmm.
see the high levels of the oxidative stress, which leads us to those antioxidant nutrients, which show up low
Mm-hmm.
on the nutrient test. And it's interesting. It's something that a lot of people don't think about. B vitamins. So all
Yes.
your Bs, which are important for fueling energy production. You need
Mm-hmm.
energy to fuel healing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the body is using up a lot of energy when it's growing, developing, and healing. So these B vitamins are really critical also. Omega 3s are really important. And I know it's so interesting to me because a lot of parents are encouraged to supplement with zinc. So when a lot of
Yeah.
patients or clients come to me, everybody's taking zinc. And I'm like,
Yes.
yes. Is anything getting better? Okay, just stop. And I'm like, okay, just stop. Because the other thing with the nutrients too that I want parents to understand that's really key is that all nutrients work together in the body. So when you
Yes.
supplement with individuals unnecessarily, it can
Mm-hmm.
throw others out of balance. And zinc is a perfect example because zinc and
It's
copper work really,
copper.
yeah. And so
Yes.
if you supplement with too much zinc, copper can get out of balance.
Yes.
And then you need copper for iron. And
Yes.
so your child can actually end up with iron deficiency
Yes.
anemia if you supplement with too much zinc.
Yeah, I
So,
researched that, and I was reading a lot
yeah.
of papers and clinical papers about it. They're like, do not overtake zinc, and that's why I stayed away from it, because I'm like, even when I went even to get supplements and I'm looking for zinc and copper mixed together, there's not that many companies that have zinc and copper together. Most of them are just selling you
They're not.
zinc, and I'm like,
Which is
huh?
really strange. I know. And I
Yeah.
agree. I think it's really strange. So that's one to look out for. So those are just some examples with the nutrients. But
Hmm.
the safest thing, like if you do want to do a nutrient supplement for your child, I
Yeah.
would just say like just start with a really good, well-rounded multivitamin that has like the active forms of the Bs in it. Like your
Yeah.
methylated forms of the B vitamins. So that's
Hmm.
the best place to start with a supplement. Like start with your child's diet first, make it as broad as possible,
Yes.
and then get a good multi. Yeah, get a good multi. Don't worry about just zinc or just this or just that. Just get a
Hmm.
good multi. And then I would say on the comprehensive digestive stool test, that really varies and it can be across the board.
Hmm.
Um, but the test that I use, it's called GI Map. It's from a
Yes.
lab called Diagnostic Solutions. That's my go-to. There's some other really good ones out there. That's
Hmm.
just the one that I use in my practice most often.
Yeah.
And so it looks at pathogenic stuff. So are there bacterial like pathogens? Are
Hmm.
there parasitic pathogens or viral pathogens? All of
Yes.
these things can cause issues. It looks at the commensals, so all of the good guys in there, the good bacteria. Are they
Hmm.
too high or too low? Either way,
Yes.
there can be issues. It looks at opportunistic overgrowth. So these are
Hmm.
things like so I'll back up a little bit. So like when we're talking about like those pathogenic bacteria, that could be like enterohemorrhagic E. coli, C. diff
Got it.
toxin. So I
Yes.
see those. Giardia is a parasitic pathogen. The
Hmm.
viral pathogens like norovirus and adenovirus are,
Hmm.
some things that I've seen on these tests. The commensals, so the good ones, like most people, well, I don't know if most people have heard
Yeah.
about this, but it's probably a lot of parents here have, but like your bifidobacterium and your
Yes.
lactobacillus, like your
Yes.
good guys, right?
Yes.
So there's a whole group of those kinds of things. Then you're opportunistic, which we all kind of have some of this, but
Hmm.
I don't really want to see it like overgrown on this test. But like Staph aureus, which is really common in people that
Yes.
have eczema, strep, Klebsiella,
Hmm.
Pseudomonas, Citrobacter. So there's like a whole series of these guys. And then also it looks at is there candida overgrowth or some other
Yeah.
types of fungal organisms. It looks for some other viruses that are not pathogenic. It also looks for parasites that are not pathogenic but also
Mm-hmm.
problematic. There's an Entomoeba coli that I see in a lot of kids. D. fragilis I see in a lot of kids. That one usually comes along with pinworms. H. pylori. This test
Dang
also looks,
it. That's
yeah,
intricate. That's so intricate, but I love it. I love it.
digestion and absorption too. We actually can see like digestive enzyme function, and then it measures
Wow.
gut immune function. That's 70 to 80%.
Wow.
It's this is why there's so much information on there, and all of this, along with the
Mhm.
nutrient testing, as long as your child's old enough to do that, it really gives us a good picture of what's happening under the surface and these
Yeah.
imbalances that we need to resolve so that that internal inflammation can calm down and then the skin can start to heal from the inside out while we
Mm.
keep supporting it from the outside in appropriately.
Yeah. And that's actually amazing because it is true. Like a lot of those things that you're talking about in terms of the pathogens and the different types, I've heard about a few of them, especially the staph that, a lot of people from eczema might, develop because it's just becoming worse and worse. And, when we read the history when you're having a staph infection, it's not really nice of what, how bad it can be and, the deaths that it can actually cause as well, too. So it's
Yeah.
important that people do these tests before it gets so far, and then it hurts, it hurtful. So
Yeah.
from when they do the test, what's your next step with everyone so that they kind of know? Like, do you do
Mhm.
one test before the other, or do you do this simultaneously, and then what's your next steps with everyone?
Yeah, I usually do them at the same time. So we'll just do those at the beginning. Then I help my clients, I create a customized plan for them to resolve the imbalances. And it's different supplements to resolve those imbalances, along with, any way we can supplement the diet with food
Yeah.
based, intervention as well. So we talk through all of that. And yeah, and then my process is I work privately with clients. And so, we get them set up with the testing, get them their personalized plans. We have some follow-up sessions.
Yeah.
I also have a private online community and I do twice monthly live group coaching in there. So another opportunity to pick my brain and celebrate wins and work through challenges with people, answer whatever questions they have. So yeah, and then everybody's so individualized. So it's like,
Yeah.
we do the testing, we get you on a plan, we get you support, and then we
Hmm.
work through it. And it's always interesting too, because and I know a lot of parents out there are very do it yourself, and you want to
Yeah.
fix it for your child.
Yeah.
I get it, I totally do. But if you have been on this journey and you've been trying for like 6 months, I mean, max, and you're not seeing much change, get
Yes.
help. And because that's the
Yes.
thing too, it's like once we really know what's happening and get an appropriate plan, we implement that. But that's not the
Yes.
end either. It's not going to be like a one and done plan. Like that's what the
Yes.
follow up is for, is to make sure, because again, everybody is different. So it's like,
Hmm.
here's what we know based on your child's biochemistry, based on our conversation, based on the history, and here's our starting point. Now we
Yes.
go. Now you keep me posted, and we respond as your child's body responds to keep the needle moving forward for them. So it's a partnership is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying. It's not something where it's like a month and we're done. It's like you're continuously graduating to that next level, and then you're seeing those successions from implementing a part of that plan, and then we're going to that next succession because it's true. Like you're starting on the journey, and it doesn't mean this journey ends in a month or 3 months or a year. It's sometimes it has to continue to evolve as the person evolves. Because me, when I'm looking at it now, closing on to 40, when I had eczema, it started at 13, changed my body, changed everything, went away. I'm in my 20s. Everything is amazing, living life. It starts acting again in my 30s. And then now it's like, it's always evolving. And I think people need to realize it's not a one and done, like you're saying. It does continue to evolve, and you do have to continue thinking about those nuances when things start to change with them as they grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And with children too, it really is interesting.
Mhm.
And it's like the sooner you start resolving those internal imbalances, the typically everybody's different, but like typically, if I could say anything's typical with this journey, because
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah.
Nothing's actually typical, but typically,
Mhm.
the sooner you jump on it, the less time it takes. And again, everybody's different. Some clients, I've had some where like within 4 months it's gone, never comes back. And I'm just like, great, okay. And then,
Yeah.
I'm like, really? You're good? Okay, we're good to go.
Yeah,
And
we
then,
like this one.
yeah, I'm like, that was easy. But I would say on average, once you get the testing, once we know what's happening, once we have a really targeted plan for your child, I expect to see results within 4 to 6 months. Some
Hmm.
people it takes longer. Most of my clients do really well, long term, and they're done and
Yeah.
they don't have issues. Some I've heard back from, some clients over the years where, I get a panicked email. Oh my God, there's a dry spot. What should I do? And I'm like, put some lotion on and keep me posted, and then they're fine, right?
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, your child, it could be the case that they are, going to be more prone to having issues down the line, but not
Mhm.
necessarily because everybody's different. I do have a client that just came back to me this week. They've been fine for 2 years and he started flaring again. So we're going to
Mhm.
do a new test and see what's going on in there now. And that's the thing too that's interesting with children because the gut microbiome is very different in babies and infants, and then it starts to mature as somebody
Yes.
grows. So
Mhm.
changes in there can happen too. So,
Mhm.
if depending where your child is in the life cycle and
Yeah.
where anybody is as a person in their life cycle, things change.
Yeah,
So,
because it's
yeah.
like you said, like, they're changing from different stages, of life.
Yeah.
Their parents are feeding them different things in different stages of their life. And then, I think we all have this tendency when things are going great, we're like, yeah, everything's fine. Let's start eating different again. And then it comes back, we're like, oh, shoot. We knew
Yeah.
better. We
Yeah.
knew better. Why are we doing this? And
It's
then
like,
that's
whoops,
when they
went a
call you.
little too far. Yeah. It's like, whoops, went a little bit too far there, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
start to push the boundaries. You're like, can I do this? Oh, I'm okay. Oh, I'm
Yes.
okay. Oh, nope, not okay
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was with me with the kimchi. I was like, everything is fine, great. But I was eating it like 3 times a day, not thinking, hey, Mikisha, this might be a little bit too much overindulgence on this. No, they said it's great. They said it's fine for you. No, Mikisha, I think it's a little bit too much. And then that's when everything tipped over. So that's when I'm just like, what the heck did I do to myself? But it's true, we pushed the button a little bit, not
Yeah.
realizing that little push can change so much. And that's when those flare ups just come out of nowhere. And you're just like, I swear I'm doing a great job, though.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Well, I
There.
need to look into this test because I am actually very, very curious about doing this test. So you do people, again, not just locally, you do everything pretty much all Canada wide, I'm assuming again.
Yeah, so I'm actually based in the US, but I work
Oh,
virtually. Yeah, so I work virtually and I see clients around the world. So I have clients in Canada, I have clients in Asia, Australia, New Zealand,
that's
um,
amazing. I had no idea you were in the
UK.
States.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
So
thinking maybe you're in Vancouver. I was like, oh, she's in Vancouver. No,
I
oh my
wish
gosh.
I
No,
was.
that's so crazy. I did not know that. Well, that's
Yeah,
good
yeah.
to know.
Yeah. But yeah, I see clients around the world. So, and I work 100% virtually. And this
Mm-hmm.
testing is available around the world. So, no matter where anybody is, we can get the testing for you. Also, the supplements that I recommend for my clients, I have professional grade supplement dispensaries with
Oh my
access
God.
around the world. So,
Amazing.
anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm so excited about that. I feel like it's such a great thing that people just need access to. I think the more knowledge is needed, the less of this guesswork. I try, or TikTok it, or this talk it, or find it here. It's just get straight to the point and get straight to the healing path because I just feel like it's just too much guesswork and kids are suffering right now. They're really, really suffering. And I hope so many of the people that were asking about children, I hope that this episode really, really helped them. So thank you so much,
So,
Jennifer, for coming on.
thank you so much for having me. I really hope this is helpful for your audience as well.
Thank you. But I have a closing tradition. I have 3 questions that I ask everybody before we leave. And my first question to you is, what do you think self care means? What does self care mean to you?
Oh gosh, that was a really good question. So for me personally,
Okay.
it would
Mm-hmm.
mean taking a break and being able to relax.
Mm.
I think that, and this does play in the skin as well, but stress can be a trigger for what's happening on the skin. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think, I think it's really key and important, especially in today's world
Hmm.
where I grew up in a time before the internet. I'm one of those. So I didn't start using all this stuff till I was already in grad school. But so it's like, to and I do notice a change in myself and how I feel because it's just the hyperstimulation from
Yes,
everything, right? And
yes,
so I think younger generations don't realize how our central nervous systems are so overstimulated
yes.
constantly every day all the time. So I think just self-care, and especially for parents with children that are going through, chronic skin rashes, finding time for yourself and trying to give yourself some love, know that you're doing a great job, but really just kind of like anytime you can find an opportunity to unplug, I think is what self care means to me, is unplugging from
Mhm.
the noise.
I like that. I actually really like that. I haven't heard that one before. And mind you, I felt that. And I've been feeling that for the last year, to be very frank. But I think most recently, I feel as though there's a major need for us to unplug and just decompress from all of that electromagnetic frequencies and all of that, because I just feel like sometimes we are overstimulated. Our nervous system really is. And I took that definitely in consideration for the last 6 months. I was like, oh, gotta unplug. So that's a new one. I like that one. I like it.
Thank you.
So our next question is, and it kind of, you kind of answered it, but I always find some people have a different answer at the same time. Is there specific things you need for your self care, and what do you necessarily do every kind of every week or every month and so forth? You kind of answered in the first one, but let's go a little deeper.
Oh gosh. Okay. I try to prioritize my sleep.
Yes.
Sleep is definitely a priority, which is a really big challenge when somebody's struggling with their skin.
Yeah.
But yes, sleep is a real priority. Fueling the body appropriately is huge. And as you get older, we know this, right? We know we
Yeah.
need to put good stuff in our bodies, but the older you get, the more you realize how unwell you feel when you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So making sure that, it's interesting too, like so many people nowadays, like they don't even think about it. They fill up their car with gas. Again, depending what kind of car you have, if you still
Yeah.
use a gas car,
Yes.
but people don't think twice about putting like premium fuel in their car, but then they
Hmm.
stop at, the fast food place on the way home, right?
Yep.
So
True, true.
it's like, giving your body the optimal fuel that it needs to function. Um, and then I would say too, I think nature is really important, and
Mm,
just, spending some time outside,
mm,
without the phone, is
yes.
really key. And, depending where you live, like not every day might be weather friendly to do that. But
Yeah.
anytime you can, like, get some air, fresh air, like, I have a dog. I walk my dog, would take her
Hmm.
out multiple times a day. And it's a nice opportunity to like not take my phone and just kind
Yeah.
of look at the sky, look at the trees, and just kind of be quiet, listen to the birds, hear the wind in the trees, and
Hmm.
those are things that I find really calming and healing.
I am
Yeah.
so agreeing with everything. Everything. I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. That makes so much sense. I do agree with the whole idea of just getting out and walking. I think since, when COVID hit, I did a lot of outdoor activities and so forth. I feel as though it pushed me to do it a lot more. And now I do a lot of hiking that I never used to do before. I was like, oh no, I walk, I'm good. But now I do like legitimate hikes, and I'm out there crunching those leaves, or just being in the heat, or even just when it's wintertime getting a little bit of a hike in. And it's just because you don't realize how much it just like recenters your body. It just gets rid of all the extra debris out of that auric field, and I just feel like it's something that people don't really pay attention to or really appreciate.
Yeah, yeah. And that's awesome. I do. I definitely a difference with COVID, right? That
Yeah.
changed everything. And just having the only thing to do, to walk around the
Yes.
outside, and made us realize like, oh, this isn't so bad. Maybe I should do
Yes.
this more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Well, thank you
Hmm.
so much, Jennifer. Really quickly, go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you. Again, it will be in the show notes, but I would love for you to let everyone know.
Awesome. Okay, so my website, you can find me at jenniferkarenbrand.com. And you can find me on Instagram at Jennifer Karen Brand. The Karen is spelled a little funny. It's Caryn. So
Yes,
all
I
Karen.
noticed that. I was like, ooh, this is different.
Yeah. My parents named me Jennifer, super general, so they got creative with the middle name. So I was like, all right, yeah.
They were
So,
happy,
so those,
but
yeah, so those are the best two places to find me. And then I also have, for anybody interested in, moving forward with private support, you can also
mm,
find that from my website, but you can also just go to rashesbegone.com,
perfect.
and find more information about that there as well.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Like, I'm taking you up on that offer of having another episode with you because I
Oh,
feel
that would
like,
be
again,
awesome.
we
I love it.
scratched the surface and I want to keep going deep on it. And I really feel like that nutrient deficiency people are going to want to know a lot more about. But I appreciate you coming on here and thank you so much. And
Thank you.
no problem. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Skin Deep podcast. It's your go-to for everything skin health and wellness. So I will see you on our next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Skin Deep podcast. Don't forget to download your free guide to our 10 hacks to great skin. Just check the link in our bio. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Have an amazing day, everyone, and enjoy your self-care Sunday.